If you want to be kind to Nigerian ruiners, call them rulers. Rulers are fixed in the moment. It's always about holding on to power. It's about maintaining hold on power. Those are rulers. Their job is to maintain themselves in power. And that's what Nigerian ruiners are. You can't call them leaders. Leaders see a destination in their mind. When they close their eyes, they can see destinations and they lead people in the direction of their vision. What is the vision governing anybody in Nigeria? None. What you have in Nigeria is a system that is designed to divide the people instead of uniting them.
How do we begin to get it right when it seems like the election system is not working, the judiciary system is not working, and then those at the helm of our friends who are not also actually helping matters, rather they just try to profit from the mess that is happening in the country? Where do we begin to get it right?
I have never been circumspect about speaking my mind on what I believe to be the way forward for Nigeria. I have never hidden my position. My position has always been clear. Nothing short of a revolution can save Nigeria from itself. Nigeria is heading to the cliff edge as we speak. The existing legal order has already been destroyed. The basis of the legal order governing Nigeria today, the 1999 Constitution, has been destroyed. So, we are either going to sit down, acknowledge the fact of the destruction of that document, and then begin to fashion a different way forward, or the system will grind to a halt and chaos will ensue.
Hi guys, welcome once again to another interview edition of Salam Meditate. And beside me here I have a very special guest, and it's no other person than Mr. Dele Farotimi. This interview is not going to be like any of the usual interviews you have been seeing him on. This is going to be a very special and well-detailed interview. It's going to be in-depth, but it's going to be like no other, and it's going to be highly impactful, I can assure you that. So welcome once again, and this is my special guest here, Mr. Dele Farotimi. Thank you very much for
having me.
granting me this interview. It's
My pleasure.
A privilege.
Thank you very much.
All right. To begin with, I want to start with a biographical story of you, so we can have a context of our discussion and also have a basis and deep knowledge of you and how you arrived at where you are today.
That's a rather unusual question. Very few people have asked that question of me, but I've told my stories in bits and pieces often enough, but since you've asked, let's just say that I was born in Djibouti to a mother of Fiditi or your stock, and my father was from Imesile in what is today known as Osun State. I grew up with my grandparents in Ibadan, went to primary schools in Ibadan, and my classmates are still alive and well. Thereafter, went to secondary school in my mother's village in Fiditi. Then from there, ended up at LASU, where the sum total of our many parts. But I'm just basically a child of my generation who was born in a country that pretended to function, had a functional educational system. I went to the same school as every other child of my age, regardless of whether they were poor or rich. Everybody had access to the same level of education. We didn't have multiple levels as we do now. So mine was just a typical story from my generation. There are many like me from my generation. I came from very humble stock, but the system worked sufficiently to allow people to rise above the circumstances of their birth. I'm not suggesting that I came from impoverished stock. No, I didn't. My father was a civil servant, even though a junior one. My mother did. My mother was not exactly some indigent woman herself. So I'm not suggesting some grass to riches tale, no. But mine was just the typical story of the Nigerian who was born in the late 60s, early 70s, who came into a functional educational system, and most of who are busy destroying the bridges they climbed by the time they got here. But that's another story. That's not what you asked. So that's the story.
Were you in Lasso? How was it like in Lasso?
Lasso. I spent a total of 12 years in Lasso. So I am something of a unique animal because I went to schools. I went to Lasso with about 3 generations. And I sometimes call it Lasso Alaro, Lasso Alale, as in I segmentize the times I spent there. I entered Lasso as a young man. I was 17 when I entered Lasso in 85. Ours was the second set in Lasso, but I didn't graduate. I entered to read English language and linguistics. That's another story for another day. And I ended up graduating in the law faculty 12 years later, 97. So it was, I saw Lasso when it was just the rump of what used to be Government College Ojo, when the whole place were just dusty lanes. There were no tarred roads or anything. And all we had were admin block 1, admin block 2, LH, the law faculty, the remnants of what used to be the science laboratory of the secondary school that was there. And then we had sciences. So it was pretty much a very basic environment. We were competing for space with Alaba goats and ragos. And the Alaba boys who were selling at Alaba International Market, they were our immediate neighbors and friends. So it was an idyllic place back then. Okokomaiko was just a village. Igboeleri, Kemberi, the whole lot. It was a pretty nice place and very decent and safe place to be back then. And then, of course, by the time I went back to read law, there had been some improvements, but the Lasso of my own season is vastly different from the Lasso of today. What we lacked in structures back then, we made up for in minds. There were great minds in that place. Men, unfortunately, a lot of us Nigeria has happened to a lot of the men that I grew up with, because if it was just that generation alone, Nigeria should have changed by now. But Nigeria has happened to a lot of us. I don't know how one looks at any part without nostalgia, because it always seems like the better days are behind us. But Lasso didn't have structures back then, it had minds. I see a lot of structures from the pictures I see now. I will not talk about the quality of the minds that would appear to have overtaken the place now, because the Lasso that I studied in, the school I went to, would not have found the capacity to normalize some of the things I see normalized. But it's not unique to Lasso, it's merely a reflection of the society itself. That's what it is.
How did it take you that long, 12 years?
Many reasons. I had to go on, what do you call it? Let's say multiple journeys of self-discovery. Let's just put it that way. I knew that I wanted to read law. I wasn't interested in reading English language and linguistics. It was pointless as far as I was concerned. I knew that I was living in a country that had little or no respect for anything called law. And I didn't want to work for anyone. And reading English language and linguistics wouldn't have equipped me to know the laws that we all pretend to obey, so that I might then be better informed as to how to find my way around the labyrinth of lies that we call laws. So my determination to read law meant that I wasn't particularly keen on my English language course. And when I saw fit to abandon it at a point, I abandoned it and went off on my own frolic. By the time I came back, the university was very kind to remind me that I had gone for too long, and they deemed my studentship withdrawn. Yeah. That's not their fault, that was my own fault. But of course, I picked up my JAMB form and wrote JAMB again. The story of how I ended back in LASU is not for your camera. Let's just say that I ended up back in the same place that I thought I had fled. So, I ended up in LASU to read law.
You mostly like to be referred to as retired lawyer. So, when you read law, why do you prefer not to actively be in the law firm?
It will be spinning a tale if I said to you, it was because I saw the putrefaction of our judicial system, I then walked away. That would be a lie. That would be a lie. That wouldn't be particularly true. I had always wanted more than to chase after money. And for me, law was just a means, the profession was a means to achieve financial security. It was a means to earn a living without being dependent on the vagaries of men or the charities of men or even the grace of the government. No matter how much anybody might dislike me as a human being, you cannot take away my intellectual capacity. My intellectual capacity as a lawyer means that I can work regardless of whether the government is hostile to my interest or not. I can work whether a client walks away or not. As long as I am professional in the discharge of my duties, I didn't need to depend on anybody's goodwill. That recommended the practice of law. But I also knew that I wanted to do other things with my life. Now, lawyers don't really ever retire in the true sense of the word retire, because if you say you've retired as as a pilot, for instance, it simply means that you are not going to be flying a plane again, except maybe when you go to your flying club and you fly for the pleasure of it. But I knew I wanted, one, to know the law so that I will understand how to move about in this lawless environment. But I also wanted a course, a profession, a training that rounds me up completely and does bring forth all my proclivities. The law is essentially theater. There was a time in my life when I was much younger when I toyed with the idea of the theater. So it presented that. But when it comes to the subject of retiring, even whilst I was still in the university, all my close friends would attest to the fact that I told all of them that once I turned 50, I would leave the practice of law. They would ask, so what would you be doing? I said, I didn't know. Maybe I'll write, maybe I would act, maybe I'll farm, but I just know that I don't want to spend my life practicing law. I already knew I was practicing a lie. So it wasn't something I was willing to give my life to. So it wasn't a function of I got to a point and I became disillusioned. No, I always knew. My wife knew before she married me that once I turned 50, I wasn't practicing law again. The principal partner in the law office that I left behind, Rafun Woke, he knew the day I was interviewing him to work with me as an employee that I was leaving when I turned 50. So I knew from the beginning that once I turned 50, I wasn't practicing law any longer. Why? I did not know. What I would be doing, I was not particularly clear. But I knew that once I turned 50, I was going to walk away from this.
Not really because of the Nigerians.
No. What happened with the Nigerian system is that it helped me to strengthen my resolve. I could have said it blithely in my 20s and 30s that once I turned 50, I would stop practicing law. That was a very easy thing to say as a young man. But as I entered my 40s and my mid-40s, and I was approaching 50, it wasn't such an easy decision to take any longer. It was the life I'd built for myself. It was all I knew. I knew nothing else. I'd never earned a living in any other way. except as a lawyer. And I was approaching my 50, and I had already told everyone, including clients, that I would stop practicing when I turned 50. Every lawyer I ever employed, I employed recruiting a potential partner. So I wasn't unclear about my intention. So it's not about Nigeria, but the way the legal system became increasingly putrid, completely stinking. It made it easier. It became something of a joy for me to look everybody in the eye and tell them I am a retired lawyer. It's a rebuke to the system. I'm actually telling the system that there is nothing about that system that suggests that one should associate with it if one is able to dissociate oneself. So I say it with pride today. I am a retired lawyer, and I am retired because, yes, it's what I've always wanted for myself. But I say the retired part because it's almost impossible to presume honor to someone simply because they said they are either lawyers or justices. You cannot presume honor to anyone again. So, yeah, I'm retired. Thank you very much.
Right. So, will there be anything that will happen to bring you back into the practice?
To come and do what? Number one, even when I was still in practice, as quickly as I could, I moved away from anything that would take me to the courts. I would urge my clients to settle matters as amicably as can be. I was in practice for over 20 years. I never encouraged a single client to go to the court. And as at the time I was retiring, I had less than 20 active litigation files in my practice. Every time you go to court is a failure of relationships. It simply meant that the relationships have failed, or the state is looking to oppress somebody or the other. That is what it would literally take you to the court. So when I was still in practice, I would do everything to tell people not to go to court because I always knew that the court systems are useless. So I tell clients, if you are going to court, number one, even if the judge is not corrupt, the best the system will offer you for litigation in Lagos State, you are going to spend nothing less than about 5 to 6 years in the High Court. So exactly what do you gain even if the judge is not corrupt? The system is corrupt. What is the purpose of justice that drags on for years? Generations sometimes do not enjoy the fruit of litigation. So as a rule, I never encouraged it. So when you're talking about what will bring me out of, nothing can, my training as a lawyer is part of who I am. As a Yoruba man, I'm already a lawyer by very nature, being a Yoruba person, whether anybody likes it or not. At the foundation of Yoruba civilization is reasoning. We reason out things. Yorubas will say, that means that you learn to state your case. I'm a Yoruba man, a full-bred one. So I'm by nature a lawyer. My training only layered on top of my culture. So if I have any issue that I'm confronted with, obviously my training as a lawyer will kick in. But for me to, when you say anything bring you back to practice, I presume you're talking about going into a court. To go and do what? Unless somebody is dragging me to court to go and face some charges, I have no business with any court in Nigeria because I don't believe any one of them is worthy of the name court. That's just a fact. So let's be clear, nothing, God forbid bad thing. If you see me in court, it's because they dragged me there.
Okay, now, we have a whole lot we want to discuss, but I read this book and it's quite very interesting. One of the reasons I read that you wrote this book, you said it's one of the ways you pour out your pain. What are the reasons why you sit down to write books, to write this book?
You remind me of a fella interview with BBC. I watched that interview a few years ago. And I think fella was explaining the thematic preoccupation of his music. Like he's singing about his reality. So when he can't sing about love or sing about cars or sing about beds, he's going to sing about the pains and deprivation that he sees every time he looks around the society in which he lives. Any creative, whether that's a wood carver, whether that's whatever you're doing that comes from your subconscious, from your inner mind, must be related to the society within which you find yourself. Do not die in their war. It is interesting you asked that question. I was explaining to my assistant a couple of days back. What you find is this. Is a collection of pains, memories, some good, but is largely a collection of thematically linked essays that explores the Nigerian condition. It's I didn't set out to write this book. I actually set out to write the imperatives of the Nigerian Revolution. But I realized that there is no way the average Nigerian would ever understand the imperatives of the Nigerian Revolution without being offered the background of the reality of Nigeria. Nigeria is built on foundations of lies. And these lies, unfortunately, are dependent on the idiocy of the Nigerian victims. So these victims are kept deliberately stupid. The state uses weaponized poverty and weaponized ignorance to keep them stupid so that it can continue to tell them stories that are disconnected from their reality and that they would have seen if they would spend the time to examine their reality. But because the Nigerian has been reduced to the simple-minded, they just tell him, oh, that Yoruba man is your problem. That Fulani man is your enemy. It's the Christians that are the problem. Oh, it's the Igbo man that is causing the issue. Oh, it's always somebody or the other, never those who truly are causing the problems. So when I sat down, I didn't sit down to say, oh, yeah, let me write a book called Do Not Die in Their War. I was responding to events that I was seeing on a daily basis. I was writing about my everyday realities. These days, what I used to do when I was writing Do Not Die in Their War was that when Nigeria slapped me in one way or the other, one of the madnesses of our environment, the insanities became too much to bear. Writing became a release. So I would take the thought, I'll sit down and I'll write. This is how the different chapters were written. But instead of writing like this now, because I have come to realize that I am dealing essentially with a people incapable of introspection, they don't even have time to read. They don't have time to read. So because I realize that the persons I am speaking with are not hearing me, I then realized that what I needed to do was to stop preaching to the deaf. I started doing epigrams instead. So instead of writing a whole chapter, I'll write a single sentence. What used to be chapters that became Do Not Die in Their War are the little epigrams that I drop almost on a daily basis. So instead of sitting down to write a long-winded essay, which nobody might bother to read, I simply take either one of our proverbs, because our proverbs are all scriptures. I either take one of our scriptures and then I put the interpretation in English language for every other person. Or I just take the kernel of the thought and I post it. So Do Not Die in Their War was written from the pains of my experience, the joys of my experience, and the realities of my experiences as a Nigerian. That is what that is.
Now, before anything deteriorates, there is always a starting point. At what point did Nigeria begin to get it wrong? Can you give a breakdown of what point we start getting it wrong in this country?
Frankly speaking, Nigeria was always wrong from the beginning. Nigeria was structured and designed to fail from the beginning. The realization of its structured destruction was what led to the first coup of January 1966. If it was working 6 years after it was cobbled together, there wouldn't have been a coup so quickly. That if it was working, you wouldn't have found the conditions that led to the first coup. That it didn't work and was not working was what you also saw leading to the second coup. Because even if there was a breakdown in January, every system is built that will last, should be built with tolerance built into it. And there should be conflict resolution mechanisms found on equity that would solve the problem. But when you have a system that was already designed to self-destruct, what you found was that the urge to avenge or revenge was uppermost. Nation building was not in anybody's mind, at least not in the minds of any of the actors. The first cries that were heard in July 1966 was Arewa, Ariba, or whatever they were shouting at the Ikeja cantonment. It was about break up Nigeria. So you find that the forces tearing Nigeria apart were already present at the dawn of our birth, or its birth, because Nigeria is nobody's mother. It was already there. The problems were already there from the beginning. So when you say, where did we go wrong? You're suggesting that maybe some event happened after the fact that led to the mess that you are seeing today. But that would be fallacious. It was there from the beginning. It wasn't just one factor. There were multiple factors. But the conversation towards resolution ended in July 1966. From July 1966 up till date, the Nigerian people have never been consulted as to how their lives should be run. 2023 is a fairly good example of how we got here. If you consider the fact that, forget partisanship, INEC is completely incapable of telling us how it arrived at the declaration of Jaguda as president of this country. INEC can't tell us that because INEC knows that the power does not flow from the people. It does not flow from the people. It flows from those who have hijacked the state. So when you ask, where did we go wrong? We went wrong before we started out, but we derailed completely when the will of the people became discounted completely in July 1966. Because every document that has purported to speak for the Nigerian people, the 1979 Constitution, the 1999 Constitution, they are fraudulent documents that do not flow from the will of the people. They are military decrees, pretending to be constitutions, telling us we the people. No, we the people did not do anything. It was a bunch of jagudas who sat together, called themselves military men, and decreed a constitution into existence. And that constitution, the last one that was decreed into existence, Decree 24 of 1999, is the one that Jaguda Tinubu is piecing all over right now, and the court is helping him to kill. So let's be clear, we didn't go wrong yesterday. We didn't go wrong in February 2023 either. We didn't even go wrong in 2015 when we elected, when whatever happened and that tsunami called Buhari happened to all of Nigeria. We done lost. Nigeria was lost before I was born. That's just the truth.
Wow. Now, you talk about the pains of this country and the mess Nigeria has gotten into. And someone of your caliber, someone would say that maybe if it would be better for you, maybe if you're quiet, to benefit from the loot or to enjoy or to be quiet like many others. Why do you choose to speak against the system, knowing the consequences?
What consequences?
Those that actually speak out regarding the system.
Look,
Why do you choose to talk?
let's be clear about something. The only certainty in life is death. There is an Islamic tradition, I think is Abu Ghraib. The guy said, the day a child is born, it is old enough to die. I am 55. I live in a country that is blessed, tremendously blessed. Nigeria is a blessed country, however you care to dice it. It's blessed with people from the north to the south, the east. We have beautiful human beings. The land is blessed. It yields almost all the riches of the dark places to Nigerians. The land is blessed. Our hair is blessed. We don't need to have special clothing for any time of the year. We can wear anything. We are blessed in every way a country can possibly be blessed. We have a very long coastline. Our climate to die for. There is no reason under the sun why the Nigerian should know any form of lack. But unfortunately, we are hobbled by a evil governing system and by even more myopic evil men. They don't remember that they will die. So they don't work for posterity, they work for the now. So the unfortunate thing in my country is that my country is blessed, but it's being ruined by blind evil men. So if I now allow myself to embrace the idiocy of the fear that says to me that I should keep quiet and simply profit from the evil that I am seeing, what happens the day I draw my last breath? What do I tell? Okay, some people will say there is no God, no problem. But what do I tell my own conscience? If you're blessed to see something wrong, in my own view, it is almost always because you are either meant to shout about what you've seen. It might very well be that you are not the solution to the problem, or it might be that you are the solution to the problem. But you cannot see something bad and find the grace to keep quiet simply because you wouldn't profit by talking. So I'm sorry, I owe my children, I owe myself, I owe my conscience, I owe posterity the duty to speak to what I see. How other people receive it, that's their own business. What they will do in reaction, that's their own call. It's not for me to determine what anybody might do in reaction to what I say or do. That's their business. It's none of my own business. It is actually an honor to be able to look evil men in the eye and simply say what you know to be the truth and let them go and do whatever they want to do. They are not God. I think it's Igbo. Igbos will say, Madwa Brochuku. Man is not God. And it's actually a pleasure, if you ask me. There is a completely carnal pleasure that I derive from letting man know that he's not God. This is not about, it goes beyond anything else. It's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to look at evil men who play God and tell them they are not God. It has nothing to do with God said. God didn't send me that part. But me, I find a lot of pleasure. The fact that you find some of them, they are short monkeys like that. They are ego. They have giant-sized egos. And they go around stamping all over the place, behaving like they are God. They oppress people, peas all over the people's head. Bastards will be sharing palliatives as souvenirs at parties. And the people will know they are thieves and can't call them thieves because they are worried about not getting tomorrow's food from them. It pleases me, it gives me great pleasure to look at them and call them what they are, because they are all thieves, evil men, myopic fools, riding around in 100 million, 200 million, 300 million naira cars bought from the proceeds of theft. They will sit down there, they say VIP. They are all thieves. Their work is all there for. So please, all that is not. I'm not just doing it for anyone else. I derive pleasure from doing it. It's a lot of pleasure to tell evil men they are evil.
Now, you spoke about how Nigeria has been bad from the beginning. So, is it because of how diverse we are? Has our diversity been a blessing to us, or it has been a curse, or the reason why we find ourselves as what we are today?
You know, nature speaks to us, and it doesn't speak in tongues. It speaks in colors. Anytime you find yourself in a space where man has not destroyed God's work and built concrete monstrosities such as the ones you find around there, anywhere you find nature, look around you. You will not find anything monotonous in nature. You will find diversity in nature. But you will also find justice in nature. If you have diversities into which you have not baked equity and justice, you will always have war. There will be strife because people will compete. It is in their nature to compete. And when you do not create a level playing field, level playing field does not necessarily mean that you equalize everybody, because some people would definitely require help more than others. But it does not mean that you are now going to hold somebody else while somebody else is encouraged to run. But we have a society that has been built on the back of injustice. Even our fraudulent constitution has baked in inequalities. It tells you that somebody is coming from educationally disadvantaged, this one is quota system, this one is that. It has encouraged divisions of the people. But it is the people that have been divided. The ruiners have never been divided. Have you heard any one of those ones at the National Assembly complaining about being paid too much? Exactly. But the people, they are busy arguing and abusing each other on behalf of the monkeys who are busy sharing the loot. So it is not that our diversity is a problem on its own, or that it is what has doomed us. Are we more diverse than India? We are not. The reality is that our diversity should be our strength. But those who designed Nigeria and its governance systems have designed it in a manner that makes it impossible for our diversity to strengthen us. Instead of our diversity strengthening us, it is scattering us. If you look at this table, any table would have at least 3-4 legs. Those are the diversities. But they are equally balanced. It's not like if one was not balanced properly, the table will scatter. What you have in Nigeria is a system that is designed to divide the people instead of uniting them. That is why you are talking about zoning. How did we arrive at zoning? And the zoning that they were busy zoning, are they still zoning? Is a fraudulent device, because it was always intended to divide the people, but the ruling class is united. Do you understand? So our diversity is not our problem. The argument against our diversity, the desperation about the inequities and injustices, lead other people to embrace the argument that perhaps this diversity is a problem, let's divide Nigeria. But the question I sometimes ask them is, how many parts are we dividing it into? I'm not arguing against that at this point. It's not for me to tell the oppressed how they should respond to oppression. But personally, I don't believe that our diversity is a problem. I believe it's the way we've been structured and the total absence of the rule of law in our space. That is what has led to all the problems that we have, not our diversity.
Do you think we are truly independent, or we are still under any form of neo-colonialism?
You know, there was this British spy, I think his name is Bugsby or something like that. So every time they asked him, he was a Russian spy in Britain. And every time they asked him, what do you do for a living? He would say, I'm a spy. Nobody believed him for years. The reality is that the Nigerian state is a creation of the British, and it is essentially a British company. We, the Nigerian people, have never managed to own Nigeria. That is why you have more Liverpool supporters in Nigeria than Nigerians. There are more Igbos in Nigeria than Nigerians. There are more Yorubas in Nigeria than Nigerians. There are more Arsenal supporters in Nigeria than Nigerians. The only people who do not own Nigeria are the victims of Nigeria. They are always ready to throw it away. But those who benefit from destroying it and keeping all of us in the condition we are in, they are the ones who shout the loudest about how the sovereignty of Nigeria must be safeguarded. It is indissoluble, it's non-negotiable. They are the beneficiaries. But those who are the victims, who should be the ones rallying around trying to rescue that country, to own it for themselves, become shareholders and citizens in it, they are the ones who are always talking about this country is useless, it's not working, we must break it. I can't blame them because they speak from the abundance of their pains. But it is for those who presume to know better to speak what they know. The more we reject Nigeria and abandon it, the more the beneficiaries strengthen their hold on the country, and the more our own chains are also strengthened. It's that simple.
Now, we have already people would like to say that for we to get it right, the ballot, the elections, and all of that, that is one of the starting points to get it right. Now, how do we begin to get it right when it seems like the election system is not working, the judiciary system is not working, and then those at the helm of affairs are not also actually helping matters, or rather they just try to profit from the mess that is happening in the country? Where do we begin to get it right in this country? With every available source that has been tried and not getting help.
I have never been circumspect about speaking my mind on what I believe to be the way forward for Nigeria. I have never hidden my position. My position has always been clear. Nothing short of a revolution can save Nigeria from itself. Nigeria is already designed to self-destruct. If you are going to save Nigeria, you are going to have to own up to the fact that what we have is no longer sustainable. But when I say a revolution, I must be careful to define, because a lot of times what you find is that the evil men governing Nigeria have demonized the word revolution. But the word revolution comes from the French word revolver. Revolver means to turn around. Nigeria is heading to the cliff edge as we speak. The existing legal order has already been destroyed. The basis of the legal order governing Nigeria today, the 1999 Constitution, has been destroyed. So, we are either going to sit down, acknowledge the fact of the destruction of that document, and then begin to fashion a different way forward, or the system will grind to a halt and chaos will ensue. What do I mean? I would explain. The 1999 Constitution, a document a lot of us have assailed for years, sets out rules and guidelines and has provided for how things should be done. But there is no way that constitution can continue to exist in the presence of a Bola Ahmed Tinubu presidency. To validate Bola Ahmed Tinubu's presidency, the Supreme Court is going to have to shred the 1999 Constitution, and by affirming the heresy that came out of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. If the Supreme Court proceeds to validate that judgment or that heresy, what you then find is that it would have opened the Pandora box for the destruction of the 1999 Constitution. It might take a day, it might take a year, it might take 2 years, but that Constitution effectively dies. They might enforce his death and continue to pretend that we still have a constitution and a democracy by sheer force of arms. It might be that those of us who desire a revolution might mismanage the movement, and then it turns into chaos simply because we fail to act or we act wrongly. But the fact of the matter is that you cannot sustain the lies of a constitutional democracy predicated on the 1999 Constitution and still have a Bola Ahmed Tinubu presidency. A Bola Ahmed Tinubu presidency means that we have 37 states. A Bola Ahmed Tinubu presidency validated by the Supreme Court means that it does not matter if you are a crook or a criminal, you can be our president. A Bola Ahmed Tinubu presidency means that you can lie about your name, your age, your parenthood, your schooling. You can lie about everything and anything. There are no moral bars to qualify for the presidency of Nigeria any longer. That is what a Bola Ahmed Tinubu presidency validated by the Supreme Court will be telling everybody. So for me, our reality is that we didn't get here today. I was maintaining that a revolution was required for years. I sat down and wrote a book on the subject because I already knew that this system is unsustainable. At some point, all the lies Nigeria have been telling itself would catch up with it. All the lies of Nigeria have come to coalesce in the person of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And now, Nigeria is being confronted with his own lies. Everybody who will presume to legitimize his mantle would have to take off their own gown of honor and wear it for him. And as they are wearing it for him, they are benuding themselves, and the cloth they are wearing for him cannot fit him. As they are wearing it for him, he will be torn. He is naked. It has pleased God to render him naked, and everyone who presumes to cloak him will be equally benuded. So, if they like, let them come to the knowledge of the fact that it is in the hand. That revolution can begin in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court can do something it has never done before, at least in recent times, which is to give justice.
You think it will do that?
It is entirely in their hands to do it or refuse to do it. That's their business. Let's be clear. If that doesn't happen, it's up to the Nigerian people. But my own position is the same thing that I'm saying here and now. I didn't start saying this today. But I do remember that when they offered beavers and the amendment to the Electoral Act, some of us were front and center in telling the people, go and register. Let's register to vote. Let them refuse to honor the legitimacy of our vote. We will go to court. Before there was a Peter Obi, he's there. It's an imperative of the Nigerian Revolution. It was always there that the only way we could galvanize the people generally would have to be that we took advantage of the electoral route, took advantage of the judicial route, and all failed. Because you really cannot galvanize the people to act the way they need to act in relation to the Nigerian situation if you do not strip the entire system naked in front of the people. October 2020, the young people reacting to their pains began the NSAS movement. They went onto the streets peacefully, waving flags. They burnt no tire, burnt nothing belonging to government. They merely protested peacefully. They were even having parties at some locations. What did the state do? He sent soldiers after them, murdered them in cold blood, denied that it even killed them, denied the very fact of their humanities. When they were done, we didn't ask anybody to go onto the street. The evidences are there. History is there for a purpose. I and several others, instead of telling people to go to the street to be protesting, we told them, go and register to vote. When the skepticism was high, we said, don't worry. They said beavers will walk, we'll follow them. There was no Peter Obi. There was no Labour Party. We were just doing what we believed we needed to do. We convinced the people to go and register to vote. INEC and every system that should work to make this happen did everything it could to frustrate it from happening. But those people were determined for change. You'd kill them when they were protesting now, peacefully. So we told them, don't protest, go and register to vote. We'll protest with our ballot. You did everything, the system did everything to frustrate that from happening, but the people still turned out in record numbers. We reconnected the people to the electoral process. They registered, and they turned out in record numbers to vote on the 25th and on the 18th. But what did we find? INEC deliberately, ingloriously destroyed a system that it had built with its own hand simply because it wanted to enthrone a crook.
But the judgment said they had the discretion to have on how they transmit.
Samani can say whatever he cares to say with his mouth, but there is a disconnect between his legal knowledge and whatever conditioned what he had to say. What he has to say is disconnected from legal reality. Under the Electoral Act, they have that discretion, and they published their discretion. They told everybody their guidelines. The guidelines were made pursuant to the Electoral Act. They are as good as law. So if INEC has come out to lie to us, there is some glitch that did not happen with Senate, that did not happen with House of Rep, that happened only with the presidential, and it cannot logically explain how it happened, and the judge decided to blind himself or herself to the truth of what was in front of them. I am not obliged to be as stupid as a judge who sees the truth and refuses to say it. That's the prerogative of the judge, but the Nigerians are not stupid. They know what they saw. That's why the judiciary is looking like the mess that it has always been, simply because the people can see clearly that they are lying through their teeth, shamelessly. It is one thing to have the facts on your side, have technicality on. It's another thing for a judge to simply to just go on. Oh, please, if my grandmother used to say that if I have nothing good to say about a person, I shouldn't say anything. Don't remind me of those 5, because as far as I'm concerned, they failed woefully in discharge of their duties as justices. They blinded themselves to the truth. That's my position in relation to those ones. So yes, we followed the electoral process, and when the electoral process was violently truncated and that crook was installed in that place, we went to the judiciary. The mantra is that the judiciary is the last hope of the common man. I wasn't fooled into saying that or believing that, and I said so even at the time. And I've always maintained that the Nigerian judiciary is no different from our police or our custom. We are all the same. Now Nigerians then be. Scratch it, then they collect egun, all of them. Oh, sorry, not all, most of them. So you have a situation now where we've gone to the judiciary as we've been counseled to go to court. Go to court has become the confident retort of every crook in Nigeria, because they believe that the judiciary is accomplice in their mess. So we went to court. The PEPT has done his dance naked in the village square, which is nice. I expected that, and I'm very happy they did it. So we are moving the judicial striptease to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court get to tell us that it does not matter if you are a crook. It does not matter if you are a criminal. It does not matter if we don't know your name, if we don't know if you went to school, if you lied about everything under the sun concerning you. The Supreme Court is going to tell us. The Supreme Court will also tell the whole of Nigeria that Abuja is now a state. The Supreme Court will tell the whole of Nigeria that actually there should be 3 senators in Abuja and a governor.
They said the constitution considered it a state.
That same constitution that was considering it a state, it revealed that to only the 5 justices. Or it is in that constitution that we are all reading together. It's the only state that does not have a governor. The constitution provides for the specific times when Abuja should be treated as a state. It's very clear. The National Assembly is the legislature for the Federal Capital Territory. So look, we should argue things that requires argument. The subject of the status of Abuja had been declared by the Supreme Court itself at least twice. The first time was Obasanjo and Buhari. I think that was in 1990. Must have been 93 or 94. I know that there is a decision between where the Supreme Court held clearly that Obasanjo didn't have to win Abuja. All he had to do was score 25%. It's clear. The Supreme Court made that declaration.
They said Abuja shouldn't have any special status to declare.
It is not the judge. It is.
And lose Abuja. So
listen, I didn't write that constitution. If you gave me a dime for every time I have labeled the 1999 fraud a fraud, I'll be a billionaire already. It is a fraud, but I didn't write it. That fraud is what they have been given to us as the Constitution of Nigeria. And that fraud is not ambiguous about what the status of Abuja is. It is not for the judges to determine that that constitution is wrong and then they will rewrite it the way they prefer. Their duty is to interpret that fraud. Do you understand? So all that story that they are saying that it shouldn't, that's their opinion. Their opinion does not become the constitution. And that opinion flies in the face of the Supreme Court decisions, 2 of them. Buhari was the one who was the party in both cases. The first time, I believe, was against Obasanjo. I believe the second time was either against Jonathan or Yar'Adua. I can't remember clearly now, but I know there are 2 decisions of the Supreme Court on the status of Abuja. So if Samani and Co. decide that they have a different take on it, they can go and sponsor a bill to the National Assembly to have it amended. Not that they will willfully on their own rewrite the Constitution. That is what they have done.
Now, in the absence of protests, how can the revolution happen when
Sorry, I'm sorry to cut you.
Okay.
We should be careful not to conflate the demonstration of dissent with protests. People protest by staying at home sometimes. People protest by wearing black clothes sometimes. People protest by standing in front of their houses and banging their pots sometimes. People protest by hooting their horns at particular times of the day in protest sometimes. There are multiple ways of protesting. If NSAS has not taught us anything, by now it has taught us that massing in one location invites the murderous people to come to us. If it also hasn't taught us anything, if we haven't learned anything over the years, it is that we should make sure that the people are connected to the struggle for their liberation. You cannot say because in your own elitist bubble you have discovered that Nigeria is bad. You now say, okay, I want to go and protest. Who are you protesting for? The people on whose behalf you are exerting yourself will look at you like you are nuisances because they are disconnected from the struggle you presume to be leading. So, this entire process of going to register to vote, go to court, go to vote, all these are all mobilization for whatever we all decide to do when we have seen the hopelessness of the judiciary. If the judiciary proves itself to be as hopeless as it has already been, then at that point, the people will realize that, okay, we've tried to protest, they killed us, NSAS. We tried to vote, they violently took away our choices and our voices. We went to court, The judiciary has proven to be completely hopeless and useless. So at this point, our objective reality is that we are slaves. So is it that we are going to conform and accept the reality of our slavery, or we are going to rebel against the reality that we do not want and that we want to change? So if we are going to rebel against a reality that we do not want and wish to change, how? Are we going to do it by massing on the street? If we are massing on the street, where? When? What street? Do you understand me? Are we having sit-at-homes? If we're having sit-at-homes, have you conscientized the people sufficiently? If you look at a space like Lagos, for instance, you'll find that Tinubu and his people have done a fantastic job of dividing the people along ethnic lines. So if you are calling any protest in a place like Lagos, for instance, you have to be sure that the people understand that you've already bridged all those gaps that have been created deliberately. So we have to continue hoping that our people will see the need for common cause. I am happy that Tinubu has not disappointed me in the area of afflicting the people, because those who shouted the loudest on his behalf are the ones whom he has assailed the most. I believe that the amount of suffering that has already been inflicted on a lot of people has made them that much more receptive to the truth. That is your tribesman or your co-religionist is not going to make your life any better. It's about good policies and good governance. He has had enough time to show the people that they don't mind. They don't matter. The people do not matter in their equation. It's all about personal and creature comfort. They can travel all over the world. They can have alerts sent to their prayers are being sent to their email addresses. People can see that. We've been at this for over 3 months now, going on 4. Palliatives have not come in any meaningful way, but the prices of fuel has been going up. They are going to have to remove more electricity subsidy, and they are going to have to continue voting more monies to themselves, and then they are going to have to afflict the people with more taxes. They are already creating the conditions that makes it inevitable for there to be chaos. But it is the duty of the conscious to make sure that instead of chaos, you have a revolution. Revolutions are brought about by deliberate conscious actions that has a plan for the day after the chaos. There is chaos coming. The system is already working towards chaos. It will grind to a halt at some point. The system even desires the chaos. They've been waiting for us to go to the streets to go and protest so that they will kill a few, and then they will imprison some people, and then we'll start begging them, free this, free Lagbaja, free Temedu, and nobody will be talking about the fraudulent election again. That is what they've been waiting for since February. So when some people talk blithely about us wanting to go to the street to protest, what they don't realize is that the leadership of the obedient movement and the Labour Party has been working assiduously to keep the people from going to the streets.
Do you think that has worked for the Labour? If you were Peter Obi, what would you have done in this situation? Because do you think his calmness has been one of the reasons why the thing is going the way it was? Because if this one was the other way around, if it was a northerner that this election was stolen from, I guess there wouldn't be any court process from the beginning.
What you have done is that you have fallen into the error of assumption.
Okay.
They are falling into the error of assumption. I would have done exactly what Peter Obi is doing right now. The only difference might have been that I would have been frontal in telling the people to start preparing for the gridlock that will come after the Supreme Court might have found the idiocy to legitimize this. Peter Obi is a perfect gentleman. He's a man, he's pretty much, what you see is who he is. Me, if we were in a country where we have ideology-driven politics, if the people were citizens and their political sophistication was sufficient to have a clear understanding of choices, I'm not too sure that myself and Peter Obi would even be in the same party. He's a gentleman. He's more of a, I think Peter, if for want of a better word, is a conservative, a progressive conservative. He's not looking to, Peter Obi is not looking to shake up things and destroy. He's a gradualist who will manage the thing quite. If Peter Obi came to a house and is defective, he will probably manage the structure and put all the right, he'll put the pillars and all the reinforcements where they should be. He will manage it and make it work. That's a Peter Obi. If you gave me the same building, I'll destroy the building first, I'll break it down, and then I'll rebuild it. I'll rebuild it the way I want it to be. He would manage the building and have it back in service. So our temperaments are not the same. But I am saying it with all emphasis. The strategic objective, the way he has taken his steps, go to court, like they said, avoid inflaming the country as he has done. That's exactly what I would have done. It's just that in my own case, I would have been frontal in telling the people, prepare for when the Supreme Court is done with its charge. That's the difference.
To do what?
Sorry?
Prepare to do what?
That's what I've said. There are several options to what will come. But the one thing that is not going to happen is that I would accept a fraudulent pronouncement of the Supreme Court. I wouldn't. I would not. And I would be saying it from day one. I'm frontal about saying it because the issues are clear. But I'm not Peter Obi. And what he's doing right now is exactly what anyone who is not bent on a revolution like me would do. He is more of an evolutionist. He expects to drive the society to get to the point where it can then be turned around. Me, I do not believe that anything good can be done with this system. For me, it's irredeemably bad. But then what do I know? Peter Obi has been a governor. And even within this horrible system, he managed to produce results. Results that people are still pointing at years after he has left office. Results that were the very foundation of the movement that had been built behind him as a totem. So, he must be doing something right within the system that he has to work with. So I can't knock what he is doing. That is his own style. But he's doing fantastically well. Unless you are going, if anybody equates the, look, I think it's all these people, they say, I will call the music. Not be noise, be music. Peter Obi is not the man who will tell people to go onto the street and start protesting, unless he himself is going to step out onto that street to join the protest. When we get to the point where Peter Obi is announcing a protest, you should know that it will mean that the case had been sufficiently made and nobody is going to argue about the rationality of the call. But I'm not going to second guess him. And who knows? It might very well be that the Supreme Court are the ones who, the Supreme Court justices might be the one who might just become the revolutionaries in Nigeria. You can never discount the place of magic. You can't discount it. All I know is you cannot preserve the existing legal order and validate Bola Ahmed Tinubu's presidency. It's not possible.
Now, with the rate of poverty we have in this country, do you think it's a result of leadership or the citizens are not doing what they need to? Like Buhari said that Nigerians are lazy. Do you think it's the leadership as a cause or the people themselves are the cause?
The Igbos have a proverb. They say that when you find a pregnant goat, or any goat for that matter, dead in the yam barn, it did not die of hunger. You need me to repeat that? Don't worry. When you find a goat dead in the yam barn, you know those yam barn that you build with bamboo and you see plenty of yam decorating the walls? That goat did not die of hunger. Something else killed him. We are not poor. When we were starting this interview, you asked a question about Nigeria. Something led me to describe this country to you. Ours is a rich land. Our soils are good enough to produce everything we need to eat, drink, anything we want for sustenance and good lives. It's already in our soils. We are poor by design because those who ruin this country and who are ruining the Nigerian victims, their power, their hold on power is strengthened by the poverty of the people. A poor man's mind, an hungry man's mind is focused on survival. He's thinking about what to eat. He's thinking about what to drink. He's thinking about how to pay his house rent if he has a house. He's thinking of where to sleep if he's only walking the streets. He's thinking about his security. She's thinking, how do I sleep tonight without getting raped where I'm going to have to manage to sleep? She's thinking, how do I feed my children? The Nigerian is deliberately made to focus on survival so that he does not begin to query the simple suggestions they give him in place of answer. A man who is dependent on the grace of his political master to eat is not likely to query the wisdom of the political master who tells him that his neighbor and best friend is his enemy. So, you find that the Nigerian state deliberately weaponized poverty against its people. Even if you look at the palliative system, it gives you an idea of the weaponization of poverty that is endemic in Nigeria. You're going around, you'll be seeing several videos of palliatives being shared. Nigerians reduced to animals. Reduced to animals. Scooping rice with sand. And we are not declared to be at war yet. You see Nigerians scooping food, hot food, off boiling pots. Reduced to animals. In a country where people are flying private jets all over the place. Reduced. You see young men reduced to beggars.
So in essence, the leadership.
It is leadership. It is the system, the governance system. And please stop using the word leadership. Just say ruiners. Look, if you want to be kind to Nigerian ruiners, call them rulers. Rulers are fixed in the moment. It's always about holding on to power. It's about maintaining hold on power. Those are rulers. Their job is to maintain themselves in power. And that's what Nigerian ruiners are. You can't call them leaders. Leaders see a destination in their mind. When they close their eyes, they can see destinations. And they lead people in the direction of their vision. What is the vision governing anybody in Nigeria? None. We're sitting down conceiving of a new road project. And by the time you are done conceiving, you find that even the concept is already outdated and obsolete. You are building rail lines that are only fit for the 1960s and 1950s. You are building them in the 2020s. Everywhere else in the world, when they are conceiving rail lines, they are thinking of something futuristic that will take you from point A to point B in record time. And then they crow about it. The complete lack of vision, the lack of ambition that governs Nigeria is there for everybody to see. In fact, it's even a good thing that you mentioned it. In Do Not Die in Their War, there is a chapter there, I Remove the Lion Cub. If you read that chapter, you will find the story I told of Obasanjo Presidential Library, where Obasanjo was gifted a lion cub and he built an enclosure for the lion. So a lion is being kept in an enclosure that cannot or should not even be the space to hold a dog. And that lion cannot even be taken for walks. It looked like an emaciated boar bull the first sight I heard of it. That is the kind of vision governing Nigeria. They can't see beyond the minute. They can, the man, and that's the man, give it to him. Obasanjo remains the best of the lot that has governed this country. And yet, the very best of the lot that has governed Nigeria, the extent of his vision when he was given a lion cub was to build an enclosure there is no more than about 3 by 3 square meter for a lion. Who is going to walk that lion? How is that lion going to get any exercise? Inside the concrete cage. That is the vision governing Nigeria. They cannot see beyond the moment. Pimpish imagination, all of them. What have they built? What do you see in Nigeria that is futuristic outside of their greed?
But the realness doesn't stop, if I use your words, the realness doesn't stop you from opening business, getting clients, getting customers, or doing what you need to do as an entrepreneur to build a
business. You see, that is the error right there. Okay. Let me take on the toga of the entrepreneur now. Sometimes you don't even have power for days at a time. You're running a business and it is your job to provide energy supply, power supply to your own business. Are you a power company or a tailor? Are you an hairdresser or a power company? And then you have to go and buy petrol at that outrageous amount to fuel your generator. Am I a power company? Is that not part of what the government should do? I have my guard permanently. Look, the failure of governance, when I tell you that the poverty is systemic and is deliberate, it sounds highfalutin. We are supposed to be a capitalist country, or are we communist? We are capitalists. What is the meaning of capitalism? It means that capital is present in the place. You have access to credit. Where is the access to credit in Nigeria? There is no Nigerian bank today that can offer you a loan for less than 20-something percent. What business are you going to do at 20-something percent that you can pay the bank? What business? What are you going to do unless you are trading? Since when did trading become a productive part of our economy? How many people can you employ in a trading business? Manufacturing is the backbone of any economy. You have to have a manufacturing base. Even if it's an agric economy base, you will still have to find a way to work in there. Where is the capital? Where is power? Where are the infrastructures? Where are they?
Well, in the same system, we have those that made it, that created wealth.
What kind of wealth are they creating? Gambling? Bet Naija? Screw Naija? Gamble Naija?
Successful entrepreneurs.
Like which one? Like Dangote, monopolists. Who create monopolists like the one that they were busy, with his new refinery, very beautiful refinery, churning out millions of barrels of petrol every day. Buhari went and commissioned it, and we were afflicted by life proceedings for hours on end on the day in question. We are a nation of liars. They have created rent seekers who make money from the putrefied system. They erect toll gates based on monopolies. So they make money, and then you're pointing at them as though that is available to everybody else. Look, young people have been reduced to gamblers, prostitutes, Uber drivers. You know how many graduates are driving Uber in Lagos and everywhere else? Because it's about the only way they can become self-employed without being dependent on the system for their livelihood. The easiest way to become self-employed in Lagos is to be able to buy a Corolla. So you buy a Corolla, you become a Uber driver. And then you have to start dealing with the madness of the Nigerian police and all the multiple checkpoints that the state has created to fleece you even more. If it was so nice, if the opportunities were so available, why would everybody be running away? The best and brightest of this country are running every day. They are not migrating, they are fleeing.
I was according to that. So fleeing, do you think is the right thing to do to flee out of the country, or who are those that are going to build the country if all of us keep going at it?
See, you're asking a question whose answer should be pretty obvious to you as well. I have never counseled anyone to go. I've always believed that instead of going anywhere, if you are brave enough to go through the Sahara Desert, to go through Libya, go in dinghies and boats across the Mediterranean into Italy, you are brave enough to take all of that risk. I've watched documentaries where young women going on that route, they bought condoms because they knew that they would be raped. So they bought condoms so that they would give to their rapists. They are prepared to go through that. I saw a CNN documentary the other day, Nigerian in Parc des Princes in Paris, prostituting for €5. Is the hopelessness of Nigeria that drove them. People move for different reasons. You can't tell people or dictate to them how they might react or respond to adversity. People are fleeing because the reality is that Nigeria is killing people. Nigeria has legitimized murder against its own citizens, quote and unquote. So people fleeing, I can't knock anyone going, but I don't believe it is the solution. I believe the solution is that we must come to the point of realization that we cannot continue like this. And then as a people, stand up. Just stand up. All these ones that we are always scaring ourselves into believing that so people will go on the street or they'll do this. Forget all that for a moment. Stand up. Dare to even speak the truth. Imagine if the moral majority were to rise up in Nigeria and people were to look beyond the lies that they have used to comfort themselves to accept this madness. And we all just stood up. If the pastors will stop lying behind the pulpit on Sunday and just speak the truth, one Sunday in Nigeria, let the pastors just speak the truth behind their pulpit and stop preaching platitudes and asking the congregation to go and start praying for murderers and crooks, people who will grab power, snatch it, grab it anyhow. Let the pastors stop lying to the congregation and telling the congregation, go and preach, go and pray for our Christian. No! Speak the truth from behind the pulpit. Let the imams open their mouths and preach the truth of God and stop being monafics as well. Let them speak the truth. One Friday like today, let them open their mouths and tell the truth from behind their pulpits. And then you'll find that all those ones who are running away, they will be motivated simply by the fact that we all stood up and just told the truth. Why are we even worried about what will come after the fact? Why don't we just stick with what we know? What we know is the truth. Speak it. What follows thereafter, leave that one. Why are you dying before you are dead? Say it. Speak your own truth first. So all this bit about people going, I can't tell them not to go. Nigeria has been cruel to a lot of people. But I don't believe that it is the solution. If you are prepared to go through the deprivation of emigration, you're prepared to go and cross the Mediterranean, you're prepared to accept the racism and the hatred of those who see us as being less than human, even when you are a citizen in their country, which you are not in your own. Why can't you just stay here and fight to gain the same freedom that you are looking for in their own place? So I don't support people leaving, but I can't knock the victims who choose to flee. It's not for me to knock them.
Also, you just mentioned about pastors and churches. What do you think has been their role, the role of church in this country? Do you think that's helped the nation so far based on all that has been happening?
Why are you talking only about the church? Why not talk about the role of religion?
Yeah, religion, that's the word. The role of religion.
Religion, if you look at the word religion, it comes from the Latin root, Old French, religare, which means to bind. If you find some dictionaries that have illustrations, they will show you a small bird, a finch. It has its wings tied with both tied in strings. The purpose of religion is to control your mind, is to constrain your imagination. Make sure that you don't think outside of unacceptable channels. Unacceptable to who? The rulers of society. So religions are men's constructs. Man found religion. I'm not suggesting that there is anything wrong with religion. I was born a Christian myself and I used to attend churches until about 5 years ago. So I'm not knocking anybody's religion. I remain a Christian who does not go to church. I'm not knocking anyone's religion. But religion in Nigeria found its true meaning. It does not liberate. Religion in Nigeria is intended to control the minds of men. Human beings profit from Nigerian religion. Pastors, churches, clerics, imams, they profit from the ignorance of their acolytes. It is more endemic in the Christian population because unlike the Muslim, who has clear pathways, is 5 pillars of Islam, most pious Muslims would also have read the Quran on their own at some point or the other. But the average Christian rarely ever opens his Bible. When he closes his eyes, if he's not careful, his pastor is seen as Jesus Christ. Christianity is more susceptible to narcissistic men who become gods in the place of the God they protest that they serve. So they are not touched by the afflictions of their congregants. They are more interested in being conformed to the rulers of this world. They want access. They want to be granted honor.
Some will argue that.
So they will do whatever it takes to please their counterpart in the political space, because that is what they have become. Pastors, I can't say imams because I can't think of a single imam except you are talking about Gumi, the terrorist-loving one. Unless you're talking about him, he's probably the only Islamic cleric whom you will find poking his head above the parapet. It is always the Christian pastors. It's always them. So if you are asking me the role of religion, I'll tell you straight up, if I ever have any say in the governance of this country, one of the very first things I would do is to make sure that religion remains in your private space, not in the public space. Religion has no business in governance. It has no business in the state. Nigeria is declared to be a secular state, and yet everywhere you see pastors, imams, putting their nose and mouth. They have no business there. Let them be private citizens that do their businesses there.
Wow. Now, if you look at the North deeply and you look at the South, would you say the North has been more wise in playing their politics than the South, than the Southern counterpart?
Nobody is playing politics in Nigeria. And what you are trying to, the difference you're trying to make is a function of citizen sophistication, the sophistication of the people in the different parts. The average person in the northern part of Nigeria is first of all deprived of the Western education that you and I have. The culture is also less confrontational. It is more accepting of leadership, authority position. You must not forget that before the British came into this space, northern Nigeria was already ruled by a feudal system that had existed for over 300 years before the British came to this space. We conveniently forget that that place you call northern Nigeria was once a sprawl. In fact, there were 2 sprawling empires in that place. You had the Kanem Borno Empire, which sprawled all the way to Mali. You also had the Sokoto Caliphate, which already had diplomatic relationship with other countries, Sudan and the rest, for over 200 years, for over 100 years before the British came. So the British merely layered on top of what they found when they got here. And we have not managed to evolve properly as a people. We are still building on top of what we found fraudulently. So when you talk about the differences are real. But the differences are not just about education, it's about culture, it's about worldview, it's about the differences in our, let me say, our perspectives on life. The bulk of the people you are referring to are Muslims. They are accepting of the will of Allah. They will tell you straight away everything is as God has preordained it. But when you come to the South, you find a multiplicity of peoples. You find the Igbos with their highly Republican spirit. You find the Yorubas with their argumentative spirit. They will argue everything under the sun. You must make sense of everything for them. They are not likely to accept your instruction as given. They want to know why. These are the different temperaments that you will find across the country. But you really even can't talk about the North like a monolithic entity any longer. The last election showed us that. If only INEC had allowed the true results to come out, a lot of people would have been shocked by some of the things that we saw in the Situation Room. So it's not, there is really no North and South in the true sense like there used to be, but you must always account for the cultural differences. informed by years of history and religious perspectives.
Now, when it comes to population census, do you think we are actually 200 million, like they purport it to be, or it has our population count has never been right the way that people have put it, like the north and the south?
The only thing I can say is that we've never had an accurate population census, a proper census, and the reasons are simple. We've had a need to keep lying to ourselves. And that need to keep lying to ourselves has ensured that we've never managed to accurately count ourselves. It's not impossible that 100 million, because you have to consider the fact that if you are going to be lying about the number of people in certain parts, you'd necessarily have to inflate the population figure to cover that. And you can be sure that it's not only one part of Nigeria that is now lying about its population figures. Everybody now sees the need and advantage of inflating their population numbers. So you're always going to find that it's going to be difficult in an environment where it is now right to keep lying. But if we are ever interested in proper population census, it shouldn't be beyond our capacities as rational human beings. I am of the opinion that we're probably closer to about 130, 150 than the 200 million that they keep banding around. But like I said, nobody knows. Anything I'm saying will be pure punditry. I have no basis in fact to go. And anybody who is also giving you any figure about Nigerian population is doing exactly the same. They don't have any objective basis upon which to make those analyses.
Now, to bring it home now, can you briefly describe the Nigeria of your dream? If you are to envision Nigeria completely, how do you want to describe it the way you want Nigeria to be?
Well, first thing first, I'll probably take into cognizance the preponderance of Nigerian vision for their country. If you go into Nigerian history, pre-independence and post-independence, and then you juxtapose that against both the Abacha Constitutional Conference and the Jonathan Conference, you'll find that the Nigerian people have more or less agreed that they want to have 6 regions in Nigeria. So I would like to see that happen. I would like to see a Nigeria governed first by a 6 regional structure, but that is also anchored to the rule of law. I would like to see a Nigeria where it doesn't matter who you are subject to law. Because without the law ruling in a space, you can never have citizens in that space. It is only spaces ruled by law, governed by law. It is only in those spaces that you can have citizens. In the absence of the rule of law, there can never be citizenship. So I would like to see a Nigeria governed by law, where everyone, both the people ruling and those being ruled, the governors and the governed, all are equal before the law. If that should ever happen, the Nigerian spirit will be allowed unfettered opportunity for growth. I was old enough when the GSM came to Nigeria. I was already in my 30s, I was already in my 30s by the time the GSM came to Nigeria, and I can tell you the revolution that has taken place in communication before and after. I know that if the Nigerian spirit is unfettered, the rule of law is established, I don't need to be a soothsayer to say what will happen to the Nigerian people. Right now we are like birds in cages. If you unfetter us and you allow us the opportunity for expression, Nigerians will create wealth. They will create opportunities. There is no way you are going to have a country like ours that is anchored to the rule of law, and investors will not come running in because they will know that their investments will be secure. Those who have monies within Nigeria as well would also be able to invest without worrying their heads about running away. Look at this country. The average member of the Nigerian middle class His biggest ambition now is to run out of Nigeria to go and secure the future of their children. What future are you securing in exile? What future? But the only reason these things are happening is because the society is already collapsing. It's actually imploding systematically. You have a country that is not anchored to law. The other day, they were busy shooting in Abuja because MC Mushroom Pikin needed to take over the NURTW head office in Abuja. That's how low we've been brought. The other day was Asari Dokubo making a nuisance of himself at the Court of Appeal premises. The same Asari was the one that was sat in the chambers of Aso Rock addressing press conference. That is what we've been reduced to, a country where the law does not rule. That's what we've been reduced to. So all I would like to see is a country anchored on law, restructured in its governance systems to give opportunity to all. That's all I ask. Everything they call disadvantages in Nigeria today are actually opportunities. So we don't have good roads. It's an opportunity to build roads, create employment. It's an opportunity to retrain our people so that they are able to do things. The entire educational system, everything needs revamping. But first thing first, unbundle the energy of the people, unfetter them, institute a state governed by law. The rest will follow.
If all this doesn't happen, do you think Nnamdi Kanu has already implied that the only way forward is to divide this country?
Nnamdi Kanu has his opinion, and so does a lot of other people. His opinion is not more valid than that of the next man. But what I can tell you is this: when a state silences the voice of those who speak reasonably, they amplify the voices of those who do not. The Nigerian state validates Nnamdi Kanu's position every day by his intransigence, by his refusal to allow the people to have a voice. It validates the voices of the likes of Nnamdi Kanu. So the biggest recruitment officer for Nnamdi Kanu is the Nigerian state. The Nigerian state is his recruitment officer. I do not agree with him, but I cannot fault his position. The Nigerian state is doing a good job of promoting him.
Wow. Now, if you can look at the time of from all the way from 1999 to now, you already said Obasanjo has been the best of the laws.
Let's be very careful with the way we use words. I said the whole lot. If you put them in a basket, they are all rotten apple. But out of the lot of that rotten apple, if I must pick one out of that lot, and it's not a stretch of the imagination, Obasanjo is head and shoulder taller than the rest of them, but it's not. Don't use the word good. Let's do a comparative analysis of failures. As failures go, he was a better person.
Would you have preferred Jonathan win that election instead of Buhari? Would you have preferred to have seen?
Our problem has nothing to do with personnel changes. Jonathan is as much a victim of the system as me and you. It's not about preference. My position in 2015 was clear. I didn't vote. I couldn't bring myself to vote for either of the two. But I was clear in warning that anybody who was voting Buhari was not voting for change. You were voting to bring in a disaster. I was clear. That's the essay that was titled "Do Not Die in Their War." I was clear. So I'm not going to sit down here and with the benefit of hindsight be saying that Jonathan would have been better. No. It's about a bad system. The bad system gave two horrible options. The only thing that changed in 2023 was that Peter Obi entered the equation. If Peter Obi had not entered the equation, you would have had a clear choice between Dumba and Dumba, the twin horsemen of the apocalypse. It would have been between Atiku and Tinubu. Nobody will be quarreling or shouting about mandates today. Because either of those two would have been all right. And let me be sincere with you, if Tinubu had done exactly this same nonsense that he did, there would have been no protest anywhere in Nigeria. The only reason the country is tense and things are the way it is because we are dealing with a Peter Obi who was a clear departure from the madness and made a clear difference. If it was any other person, nobody would be shouting about go to court, go to... They didn't expect this. It wasn't part of the calculation. So, if we are talking about best, better, please, not in relation to any one of those ones. Nothing like that.
Is there anything that you can say you like about Tinubu? Anything?
Oh, I am very, very happy. I thank God for Tinubu. Without Tinubu, I wouldn't have known that we can have fake bishops. Without Tinubu, I wouldn't have known that some men that I thought were honorable men are not honorable. Without Tinubu, I wouldn't have lost more than half the people I grew up with and thought were my friends, who have now discovered are largely ethnic and ethno-religious jingoists. And they are not just Yorubas, some Igbos are amongst them, and some Hausas as well. I'm talking about friends across the length and breadth of Nigeria. Tinubu has been very good at unveiling the true nature of people. So all the horrible people who had been busy protesting to be men of God, one can see them clearer. That's because of Tinubu. If Tinubu were to be a man whose evil was ambiguous, if it was possible to say maybe he's not bad, it would have been very easy for them to continue pontificating and sounding like men of God. But the fact that the man is so unrepentantly and clearly evil, and they have found accommodation for him, and they are the ones excusing the evil, explaining the evil, looking to normalize the evil. They don't even mind taking off their own garments of honor to cloak a filthy felon. Tinubu can only be thanked though. I thank God for Tinubu. Without Tinubu, I wouldn't know the things I know today. Some people I thought were men. In fact, some people I thought were gods. They've been revealed to be men. Just men. Just men. So Tinubu has been a very good thing for this country. Excellent thing. How would we have known how useless our judiciary is if it wasn't for Tinubu? Tinubu has been a fantastic blessing to Nigeria. So now we know that some men who used to pontificate about honesty does not matter to them. Men who used to talk about citizenship, freedom, electoral rights, it doesn't matter to them. Now we know. If it wasn't for Tinubu, how would I know? Some men would have gone to their graves with honor if it wasn't for Tinubu. Do you know how many people Tinubu has turned naked? No, I am thankful for Tinubu. If I say the things that there are some things, I am so happy. Tinubu is the best thing that has happened to me in my adult life. He has helped to bring with his darkness, he has brought light. You know when you turn on the light in a room full of rats and you see them scurrying away. That's what Tinubu has done. Without Tinubu, we wouldn't have known just how depraved our society has become. All of a sudden, in this society, it doesn't matter that a man's name is unknown. It doesn't matter that his parentage is unknown. It doesn't matter that he probably went to school being a female. It does not matter. Nothing matters again because of Tinubu, and you say I shouldn't be happy. I am exceedingly happy at this emergence. He has shown the decadence of the society. Tinubu is the mirror that has been pushed in this society's face, and I'm enjoying watching every minute of it.
Wow. Now, as you're running up now, as you keep speaking about the mess of this country, would you by any chance, because most of the people that speak regarding this country, either in ways or the other, usually go on exile.
Me, exile, God forbid. God forbid. Let me be clear. It will never happen. Exile to where? What have I done? What's the worst anybody would? Number one, nobody can ruin my finances. I'm tapped to the Baba who supplies me. Take away everything I own. As long as I have a brain in my head, I'll create value. As long as I can keep creating value, I'll hit. And I'm not a man who ever tests for something I don't. If I don't have it, it doesn't hunger me. What I don't have does not appeal to me. So I'm not about to be, I'm twisted into running away because somebody is threatening to ruin me financially. They've done the best they can with that already. Is it they want to kill me? Not be today now. As far back as I think 2021, I submitted petitions to the DSS and to Lagos Police Command, clearly naming names of people who are out to kill me. So if it's about people, not that they were threatening, they were planning, plotting, and I gave details and names to the police and nothing happened till tomorrow. Do you understand? So we're not talking about anything that is new. So if I was going to run, I would have run already, but me, I ain't going nowhere. Now the people where they find me go run, because me, I'm not going to run from anybody. What's the point? I run to where? For what? So run so that they won't kill me. Not be death they there. Where death no day. The people who did that place, no they die. Imprison me for what? I double dare, triple dare, quadruple dare their fathers. For doing what? What have I done? As long as we have to keep pretending that we're a democracy, you have to continue pretending that I'm a citizen. I have to have done something to send me to prison. And it might interest you to know that even though I keep talking about this same judiciary, until a few days ago, I was in the grip of that same judiciary, facing trial within it without ever mentioning a word to anybody within this country. And I went as far as the Court of Appeal before I was set free. So let's be clear about something. I am not one of those people who succumb to blackmail and turn tail and begin to run to anywhere. I'll leave this beautiful country. Where do you want me to go? Go and be living where I have to wear like 7, 10 clothes before I can find warmth? Go to a place where I need to be taking supplements that the sun should have given me because there is no sunlight? I need to smell the diesel of generators. I'm a Nigerian. I need to hear horns being tooted. You get? That is when I know that I must hear generator making noise. I'm a Nigerian. You can't take me to, where are you taking me to? America? I can go on holiday. That's nice. It's always good to get away from this maddening place from time to time. Even if you can't go anywhere else, go to Ghana. Get away from here from time to time. It's nice. But go and live somewhere else. For who? No, better for them if they don't kill me or imprison me. I better leave that story.
Wow. So what can you tell our youth to challenge them regarding this country?
They must not you must refuse to accept slavery. That's the one thing that must be clear to them. Look, they tell you you're a global citizen, a citizen of the world. But in your own country, you are denied the right of citizens. You must not accept that. You must refuse to accept to be anything less than citizens. If there is one advice that I must pass to you, clearly, hear it and hear it again. Refuse to accept a state that is less than citizenship in your own country. You can't live here and go to America and England and be claiming rights when you can't claim rights in your own country. Fight to become citizens here.
Perfectly. Now, these are just one questions for your personal self. Now, if I should think of Mr. Dele Farotimi, what should come to my mind?
He told the truth.
Told the truth.
That's what I asked.
If you have one word for Buhari, what comes to your mind when you think of it?
Buhari?
Yes.
Disaster.
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 Will Tinubu do better than Buhari?
Even worse. Tinubu will represent the obliteration of everything called morals in this country. You can't preach morals to anybody if you have that kind of person sat in your presidency. How do you preach morals? If we're a country with any interest in justice and equity, every prisoner should be freed the moment you make such a person the president of your country. On what moral basis do you hold on to anybody? Unless the person might have murdered someone violently, you should free them. Even those ones, once you are instituting someone like Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is traveling with the baggage of Asaro Dokubo and MC Mushroom Picking, why are you keeping anybody in prison for murder? Every criminal in Nigeria should be freed if you are going to enthrone a criminal in office. End of story. So if you are talking about Buhari as a disaster, the reality is that with Tinubu is the complete obliteration of any morality or moral bar. There is none.
Now, if you can look at yourself personally, do you think there are any mistakes that you think you can turn back the hands of time you could have changed?
I don't waste my time doing that. Let other people learn from my own mistakes and do better. I've done my own bit. Why should I waste my time calculating regrets? Regrets? I learn lessons from anything I might have done. I've done a lot of things that I've done differently based on the lessons I've learned from those experiences, but I don't sit down mooning over regrets. Regrets are for weaklings. Weaklings regret. If you have enough taking your time, you don't have time for regrets. You learn the lesson, you move. Learn the lesson, move on. What's the point of regret? What good does it do?
How do you usually spend your day?
Yeah, I sit down, I read, I write, I sleep, I live.
What makes you smile in this country?
Everything.
Everything.
Everything. Our stupidities, our madnesses, our genius, everything. Have you seen? I find that you have to find a basis for happiness. Everything. I don't allow anything to get to me. I get into my bed, I put my head down, and I'm sleeping. Anytime. It takes me less than 5 minutes to sleep off. I smile at everything. There is nothing. I can't kill myself now. If I feel my pain, I write. It's my outlet. So that's that. If I feel anything, I write.
What are your final words that you have?
Final words. If it's to the Nigerian youth again, do not accept to be anything less than citizens. Whatever it takes, pay the price, but do not accept to be anything less than citizens. That's my final word.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that is it, guys. You have heard it from Mr. Dele Farotimi. I told you that this interview is going to be highly impactful. So I believe you have been highly impacted in this video. My name remains Benzik. So if it's your first time coming to the channel, do wait to hit the subscribe button, share and like this video, and don't forget to share it with those that this will highly impact. And I will see you again next time. Cheers. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.